Alright, hello everybody. So with the new Elysian Realm mode, we now have a new income source of crystals. And you might have noticed that this mode is actually the hardest mode in the game to clear. This actually reminds me of the old days of the Dirac Abyss that we used to have, but that's besides the point. In my last video, I showed that it's possible to clear the highest difficulty with basically a no damage build. And so what you might think is, Keepy, how the hell is it possible that your Callan can outdamage my full gear Valkyries? Well, in fact, it is possible for me to use no gear at all, and with enough time and determination, still outdamage pretty much anything else. And you can do this with any Valkyrie in the Elysian Realm. Basically, we're going to go ahead and try and explain what's going on here. So the answer, of course, is Mobius. So Mobius can make your dreams a reality. And you might have noticed the theme of Mobius is centered around infinity, and it's very fitting because with the Mobius signets, you can theoretically do infinite damage. It's pretty crazy, but basically MiHoYo put in a solution so that pretty much any character can clear up to the highest difficulty. Alright, so how is infinite damage possible with Mobius? So as a brief overview, let's go over signets. So there are normal signets, the core signet, and 3 enhanced signets. In terms of her normal signets, there's really nothing special. So after getting 3 normal signets, you'll be able to get the core signet. The core signet is special because your own Valkyrie will also be considered a summoned entity. But where things really get crazy is this signet called Dead X. So with this signet, every single second that passes, you'll get a ramping buff that just keeps rising infinitely. Now remember how Mind Sync works is that your Valkyrie is also a summoned entity. So guess who else is getting this buff? That's right, it's you. And so with infinite damage, your job as a Mobius enjoyer is to keep Mind Sync in motion as much as possible. And so the other 2 enhanced signets are designed exactly to do this. Basically, as long as Mobius's face never leaves the screen, you win the game. And the number here basically tells you how much longer you have left of Mind Sync. And with that comes the question of how many signets do you actually need to keep this loop in motion? So first of all, to trigger Mind Sync, there are only 3 buttons you can press, which are the Support Valkyrie buttons and the Elf button. So theoretically, the best you can do is a 9-second Mind Sync. However, we have the enhanced signet called Newborn, which actually, instead of giving you a 3-second Mind Sync, will extend the duration. At base level, this is 13, and then it'll go up to 19 at max. And so you use this in conjunction with the decreased cooldown signets, which there are 2 of. And basically, in short, you'll need all of these signets for this loop to work, and you'll also need to upgrade it about 4 times to get the loop going. The one exception, of course, is the Tesla Elf. So the Tesla Elf actually gives you 4 buttons because you can press the Tesla Elf Ultimate twice. And because of this, you can actually get away with a lot less, as seen with my video with Callan. Now first of all, let's actually talk about unlocking Mobius. Mobius will be unlocked after you progress through the story enough times and you level up all your eggs. When you actually decide that you want to try the Mobius strategy out, you really need to make sure that you compensate for your early game. Mobius is really weak early, so especially for the Herrscher type Valkyries, I recommend you actually go for another set first. So for example, with the Herrscher Flame Scion, I like to get a couple Elysia buffs and a Decimation set before I decide to go for the Mobius build. For the first 2 gates in particular, you definitely want to go for offensive signets, not necessarily the Mobius signets. And that is because on floor 4 and floor 7, you have the opportunity to get more than 1 signet, and you definitely want to take advantage of that. What I recommend for the early game supports is Chariot plus Vermilion Knight. Vermilion Knight in particular does a lot of damage, but the cooldown is very high, so she's really only suited for the early game, and you want to transition out of her later on. In the case of the end game of the Mobius build, the general recommendation is to use Bright Knight plus Chariot, and that is because the cooldown is only 30 seconds each, and that makes it the easiest to maintain the Mind Sync loop. Bright Knight in particular also gives you a lot of protection when she's up. So let's go over a completely free-to-play run, taking advantage of the infinite multiplier to get the 130 difficulty clear. So first off, I am using Michelangelo plus Marco Polo. And I did use Blood Rose over Vermilion Knight here out of preference, but any offensive support also works. So for the early game, you really want to establish your strength in the first 2 floors. And for Callan in particular, it's very difficult to do that because she is probably one of the weakest Valkyries in this mode. And because of that, I have to reset for at least 2 Elysia buffs, otherwise the damage is just not enough. So in this case, I've actually gotten 3 Elysia buffs, which is kind of lucky, but you kind of have to get lucky to succeed with Callan. Now on the 4th floor, we have to make sure that the Mobius buff appears because that's where we get 2 signets. Now when selecting for the 5th floor gate, this is actually the first time that the shop appears. So if you actually go into the shop, the other 2 gates that appeared along with it will actually randomize again. So if you see a Mobius gate here, I wouldn't skip it. In my run, I saw one, so I took it. So when selecting the 6th floor, you actually get one more opportunity to go into the shop. This is your last chance before Benares, so it is a very good idea to go inside. For me, since my early game was so strong and I saw a Mobius gate, I decided to skip it. On floor 7 and floor 8, I actually didn't get very lucky and I didn't see Mobius at all. Floor 8, by the way, is Benares, which is the first time limit floor. Generally for 130 difficulty, if you got a few offensive buffs, it should be okay to get through her. So with the defeat of Benares, I didn't see any Mobius gates, so I decided to go into the shop this time to reset them. It is important to note that once you go into the shop after Benares, you definitely want Bright Knight in your support category. And the reason why is because she's probably the best way to break Heimdall's shield. She also gives you quite a bit of protection and synergizes very well with Mobius. So in the shop, I upgrade the relevant Mobius signets. Dead is a really good one to upgrade. In terms of the Mobius signets, you definitely want to have Dead by the time you get to Heimdall. Especially for the A rank Valkyries, if you don't have that signet, you're probably going to be lacking in damage. So my next Mobius buff came on floor 11. By the time I got to Heimdall, I still didn't have a full loop, but the damage was enough, thankfully. After beating Heimdall though, I got my last enhanced signet, and once you get all 3 enhanced signets, you'll be extremely comfy. And because after this point, everything else is extremely easy. And so what I hope this run illustrates is that you don't need to get Mobius super early, you only really need to get about half your buffs to be Mobius within the first 12 floors. And because Herschers have a lot higher damage, they can do this more effectively. Now obviously if you fail to complete the set, a lot of the signets are going to be dead weight, so whether or not you want to go for it is up to you. Mobius is a bit of a gamble, so if you don't finish it, things will end badly. Personally, in pretty much all my runs, I consider going for Mobius just because I feel like it's very satisfying to complete. So hopefully that was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.